I'm an introvert with a high-pressure job in sales. Car dealership. Not that it matters. You probably think that's the stupidest thing you've ever heard. And maybe you're right. But sometimes what we're good at isn't what we like to do. So 6 days a week I put on what I like to call the Tom Show. I think of myself as Thomas, but I ask everyone at work to call me Tom. Makes it easier, I guess. Everyone likes Tom. Tom is your buddy. Tom will get you a great deal. Tom is a sales leader. Meanwhile, Thomas is screaming behind the smile. And 1 day a week, I take a fuck day. A fuck day is when I don't leave my apartment and cover the windows with blankets to keep the light out. I turn my phone off and put it in a special drawer with my wallet, keys, and name tag. Instead, I use my tablet. It's logged in using a Gmail address no one has. That's what I use to order food. In the special instructions box, I give them the code to get inside the building, and the instruction to leave the food at the door. It works, mostly. When it doesn't, I don't order from that place again. I sit in the fake dark and eat my pizza or Chinese and talk to no one. That's important, the talking to no one part. I don't say a word the entire day. I browse Reddit and watch porn and half-watch movies and TV shows I put on in the background. It's fucking sad. But it's how I find the energy to put on the Tom Show the rest of the week. And that works for me. Mostly. Until today. Today my food didn't come. That's not the first time that's happened to me. It still pissed me off though. So I crossed that place off my list and made another order. This time I picked a restaurant that knew my preferences. That delivery didn't come either. I don't like to break promises to myself, but I was hungry and had zero food at home. I was also angry that my system had failed me. I got my phone out of the quarantine drawer and turned it on. That's when I saw I had no service. That was weird because I normally get full bars in my place. I turned Wi-Fi calling on, and after it connected, I tried to call the restaurant. The phone app acted like it was dialing, but then it closed. Then it happened again. And again. I tried another number and the same thing happened. I restarted my phone, same problem. I grabbed my tablet and tried to Google voice call. Nothing. I tried to send emails to the delivery service, which I should have done first, but they never sent. They sat in the outbox. Through all of this, web pages kept loading. YouTube videos would play. I could stream Netflix no problem. During my troubleshooting, the realization that I'd have to go outside was creeping up on me. I felt like a caged animal. I give myself to people 6 days a week. Why can't I have this? This one day to be Thomas and not Tom. Why the fuck can I not have 1 day to myself? I got ready to leave and discovered my front door was gone. In its place was a smooth, unbroken wall. I put my hand where the door used to be and looked around, as if I could forget where the only exit to my apartment was. I knocked on the wall and listened, mainly because I had seen people in movies do it. I wasn't scared. Not yet. I was still confused. I walked back to the living room and grabbed one of the blankets I had over the windows. I knew what I'd find, but I lifted it up anyway. Underneath, there was no sign of a window, or even a window box, ever having been there. I had one last moment of confusion, and then I was swallowed by panic. I ripped the other blankets down and found more wall. I ran to my bedroom to check the windows in there, and found the door was locked. I ran to my second bedroom, which I use as a combo office and workout room, and grabbed a dumbbell to smash the bedroom door open. When I got back, the bedroom door wasn't locked anymore, because it was gone. I threw the dumbbell at the wall where the door used to be, and it bounced off. It should have at least cracked the drywall, so I did it again. And again. I screamed as loud as I could, slamming the dumbbell against the wall. I threw it one last time with every bit of strength I had. The wall didn't have a scratch on it. I got nothing every time, just like with my phone. My panic grew cold as the final piece clicked into place. I slowly picked the dumbbell up and carried it back to the second bedroom. I put it in front of the wall that used to be the door to that room. Then I walked back to my living room and collapsed on the couch. That's where I am now. In my living room, or what's left of it. Every time I look up from my tablet, the walls have gotten closer. An hour ago I lost the kitchen. Half an hour ago I lost the hallways. I'm sitting in a box now, just 4 blank walls. Sometimes I feel a little slide, and find that I'm much closer to the opposite wall. I'm hoping that whatever this is didn't remember to block Reddit. I'm hoping that when I hit submit, maybe this will go through. I thought about giving you my address and asking for help, but at this rate, it won't matter. I can stretch my hands out and touch both walls. Instead, I'm writing to tell you to go outside today. Go for a walk. Talk to someone. It hurts, I know. It feels like the real you is being torn apart on the inside. But there's a difference between relaxation and inactivity. There's a difference between being yourself and being the version of yourself you want people to see. I never learned that. The alternative is staying inside and getting compressed, growing narrow, feeling rooms and windows close off around you. I don't mean that figuratively. My knees are beside my ears and the tablet's pressed against my nose. I can move my fingers and have my thumb over submit, but it won't be long now. So, as many gamers know, Black Ops was just announced backwards compatible with the Xbox One. My friends and I had made plans to play it all night after I got off of work. I got home and immediately got online after the quickest shower of my life. We started around 8:30 p.m. and ended just around 11. My friends and I got tired of playing on zombies, so we just killed each other and called it a night. My one friend got offline, but the other stayed on so we could talk about work-related stuff, as we worked together. When he was talking and I was giving my fullest attention to him, I felt a very strong cold in my right ear. I was wearing my headset, which are the Corsair Voids. If you've seen them, you know that the ear cups are nearly as thick as a light winter coat, and it's hard for even sound to penetrate them, let alone extreme temperature changes. So I took off my headset and looked behind me. There wasn't anything there. The cold had faded back to my regular body heat, leaving a shiver down my spine. I brushed it off as no big deal, at least I tried to, anyway, and continued listening to my friend. Then I started hearing the creaking in the floor above me. I decided, whatever it is, I'm not giving it any more attention than it's getting from me right now, so I disregard it. About 5 minutes of conversation pass, I'm about ready to get off. I say my goodbye to my friend. Instead of hearing my friend say goodbye, something behind me did. Behind me, from the same side of my head that was getting very cold, I heard a voice that I swore my life was my father saying, "See ya, Brandon." I threw my headset at my TV, breaking about 1/12 of the whole screen. I stood up quickly while turning around. There was nothing. No trace of my dad, no trace of anything. My basement was dead as always. My adrenaline was pumping so much that I fell to my knees when I completed a top-to-bottom examination of the basement. I could hear my friend yelling for me through the speakers of my headset because he heard the bang of the microphone attached to the headset I threw. I told him what just happened. He told me to get the hell out of the basement and just go to sleep. He may have thought I was sleep deprived, but no. I'm sure that I was completely in my right mind. I listened to him and shut everything off in the basement and booked it upstairs. If you thought that was fucked up. The way my mom and dad have the house is that when you go upstairs, there's a mirror directly in front of the staircase. About 6 feet away to the right from the mirror is my room. I was going slowly up the stairs to avoid waking up my family, and I forgot about the mirror, trying to get my sanity back from that voice. I looked up when I reached the top of the staircase, and there, just over my right shoulder, there was a silhouette of a man, about 6'4", slim, and coated in black. It was a good 5 seconds of my trying to figure out if I was conscious and not dreaming. This was true fear. Fear that paralyzes you from any movement. Fear that digs deep into your mind and starts controlling you. My heart rate was pumping as fast as it would if I had just sprinted a mile. My breathing went from calm to having the wind knocked out of me from nothing. He leaned in near my face and whispered something that I couldn't understand. It sounded, again, like my dad. I left my school bag downstairs and I have a ton of homework to do, but I guess I'm not getting any of it done tonight. As long as we've been in our house, There's that man watching from the second-story window across the road. He seems to be there at all hours of the day. Whether I'm leaving for work as a laborer at 5:45 in the morning, or I'm sneaking back home after a night out on the weekend. He's always been there, sitting up in a rocking chair, maybe sometimes even standing by the window. He just stares out, never moving, never doing anything other than remain completely still. I asked Mom and Dad about him, but they said they've never seen him. They have no idea who it is, and just assumed the house was abandoned. The house being abandoned would make a lot of sense. The front fence was decaying, with its wooden slats missing and crumbling, whilst the paint on the front was unrecognizable from what was probably a light cream. The front steps had tiles loose and the mailbox overflowed with envelopes of varying ages. It would make sense to assume that the house was abandoned, but how can an abandoned house have a man up there by the window all the time? He could be a squatter. That would make some sense. But Mom and Dad would never see him, so I don't know how he's doing that. One day, Ivan pointed him out to Mom and Dad, only to have them say they didn't see him. I looked back, and he'd disappear. I glanced away, and once Mom and Dad had hopped in the car, I looked again. He was back. So I was sick of it. I walked up to the front fence, determined to go over the top. I vaulted it carefully, feeling the wood underneath me creak and sway under my weight. The front lawn had become overgrown, and the word lawn wasn't really the right one for it. It was littered with bottles and garbage, as well as with dead and dying patches of grass dotting it. Somehow, I made it to the front door after almost slipping on a loose tile on the stairs up. I pressed the doorbell. No ring. I tapped on the front door with my knuckles, wincing as splinters pierced into my hand. No response. I carefully peered around the front of the house, trying to look inside the windows, blocked by drawn curtains. I looked again at the door. Its hinges had grown rusty with disuse. Gently rubbing my finger down the hinge, I realized that there was no way this door would open, or had, possibly in years. I carefully trod down the stairs, and I was about to leave the house when I noticed it. There was a bit of wind which drew my attention to the creak of the side gate, left slightly ajar. Looking carefully to each side, I snuck down the side passage. I didn't even bother to check if the man was there in the window. I knew he'd be there. I got into the garden to be greeted by a labyrinthine collection of plants, rubbish, and an old cubby house, which had long since been reclaimed by nature. The back door was rusted shut too, a flimsy old wire screen door, and a heavier wooden one behind it. I looked around, suddenly realizing I never had any idea as to what had been in this backyard. I looked at the peeling paint along the back of the house, and the gray, dirty windows. Now that was a way in. There was a cracked window pane, just above shoulder level, and looking to be just big enough for me to squeeze in. Reaching up to the window, I broke off all the glass I could, trying to make it possible for me to squeeze in. Grasping the bottom of the window frame, I pulled myself forward. I winced as a remaining shard drew itself across my forearm, cutting along almost its entire length. I fell forward into the house, crashing down into a dusty, dark room. Grimacing, I wrapped my arm in the bottom of my shirt, gingerly wiping away any dirt and blood. Sitting hunched over there, it dawned on me. I'd broken into a house. Above my head I heard something scraping on tiles. I wasn't alone, that was for sure. I looked up and recognized what room I was in. Dark, cool racks and bottles sitting in them. It was a wine cellar. I looked back up at the window. It was too high for me to reach inside here, so I got to my feet and walked through the house. It was dark and dusty. The entire house was dead, just so completely devoid of human life. I walked on up, past a set dinner table for 6 people with 7 chairs, spiderwebs connecting old crystal wine glasses at each place. I kept walking. The further I progressed into the house, the darker it got. I pulled out my phone. No reception, that was funny. I flicked on the flashlight, using it to cast a dim light just in front of me. My battery was low too. I wasn't feeling too confident about it. 5%. I stepped out of the dining room, into another hallway. I spun the light on my phone around, seeing blank picture frames set on the wall, and a cabinet at the end of the hall. 3%. I approached it and looked inside. The top shelf was empty. I panned downwards with my light. They were filled with skulls. 1%. I realized what they were. 0%. The light went out, and it was completely black. I carefully looked around, trying to find some glint of light. I was totally disorientated. I placed my hand on the left wall and tried to slowly walk forward. As I turned, I saw a source of light. I stopped, slowly letting my eyes adjust. From what I could make out, there were stairs in front of me, and a door which wasn't quite fully shut or quite fully open. If my mental plan of the house worked out, I hoped that'd be the house level he would be on, the one who was always watching me. I placed my hand on the dusty balustrade of the stair, marveling at how ornate it felt in the near total darkness. I moved up the stairs and gently pushed on the door, sneaking inside. There he was, sitting in his chair, looking directly at me. I stepped towards the back of the figure gingerly, then I took another step. The chair spun around without him moving, and I looked into his eyes. His muddy gray eyes set against his pale green skin and jet black hair. He smiled with slightly crooked teeth and raised a single uncalloused hand. He waved to me. He got up, ghosted past me, and slid out the door. The door clicked closed behind him. All I did was stand there motionless. It was hours before I could get up the nerve to move anywhere. I saw Mom and Dad out the front, heard them calling my name. I watched them go back into the house. It was only then when I moved. Painstakingly slowly, I labored towards the door and pulled. It wouldn't open. I tried again. Nothing. I couldn't shift it, so I gave up and sat down on the chair for a bit. I saw my family leave every day. I saw police at my house, asking where I'd been seen last. I saw family and loved ones visit my parents. I saw my mom and dad leave every day, gradually graying and wrinkling, their gray eyes, once vibrant and full of life, getting darker and more lifeless with every day. I saw a for sale sign be put up. I saw the realtor, a slim young man with slicked brown hair parted to the side, as he placed up a sold sticker. I saw my parents move away from me. I saw the new family. I saw new renovations, repairing the front of my old house. I saw the family move in. I saw the face of their young son, who was only 4, as he looked straight at me, and I looked at him. Many years have passed since then, but today, I saw him knock on the front door. He left, but he'll be back. Tomorrow, I'll see him inside my room, and then, I'll be able to move on. He'll stay, though. He'll see. I once hoped he'd rescue me, but now I know I won't be rescued. It'll be a swap. It's the only way I can get myself out of here. Then one day, he'll look someone else in the eye, and they can take his place. You will see. I really do want to be a good boy. My parents taught me the prayers, and they taught me the rituals. I know what I have to do. I've been doing this all my life. Don't go to sleep without saying your prayers, my mother would say every night after dinner. On Sabbath, we would go to church and do everything we were supposed to do. Worship the Lamb, take in communion, kneel to the priest and receive his blessing. But if I'm doing everything right, why am I having these disturbing thoughts? I can't tell anyone about the feelings I'm having. I'm terrified to think what my parents would do to me if they even suspected any of this. We learned early not to question any of the doctrines. The memories of the big purple bruises on my and my sister's legs won't be forgotten. We learned not to ask dumb questions. I try so hard every day to drive these thoughts from my mind. I read from the scriptures. I pray incessantly. And for a time, I'm at peace. But then, at the most inopportune moments, an image of something terrible will pop into my psyche. Where are they coming from? I don't know if I'm being tempted by the enemy, or are these thoughts actually mine? Just last week, I wasn't a very good boy. I needed to clear my head, so I rode my bike over to the camping grounds. I hid my bike under a bush and headed over to the big glassy lake to take a stroll, when I saw some shapes headed towards me. It was one of the men from my congregation. He was one of the elders, and he was to be absolutely respected under every circumstance. He saw me and waved, and walked on with a smile and a wink. Behind him followed a small girl, no older than 10 years old. She was wearing a schoolgirl uniform and her long blonde hair was tied up into a ponytail. Her big innocent eyes scanned my distraught face. Curiously, she skipped off to catch up to the elder. I knew that this was supposed to happen, but my insides were screaming. For the first time, I felt the full weight of the blasphemous thoughts that were inside me, and I couldn't ignore the burning in my gut. "This is wrong." The words blurted out of my mouth, seething with anger. I shouldn't have spoken to the elder like that. "What did you say?" The elder called back to me. My eyes were locked firmly on the ground as my shaky hands gripped the insides of my pockets for dear life. The elder walked over to me, lifted my head up with a quick jerk, and dug his steely eyes into me. His tongue slithered the words in a menacing whisper. "Repeat what you just said." My own voice was cracking. I just can't find my bike. I thought I left it here, but this is the wrong place." I turned my face away from his searching eyes, but I could still feel his gaze on me. "Your bike is under that bush, son." He was back to the jovial voice he always used at our prayer meetings. I saw him grab the girl's delicate hand and pull her away. When I was sure they had gone, I broke down and cried. I'm going to be in trouble. I know that the elder will tell to my mom and dad what happened, and then I will be punished. But talking back to the elder, that's far worse than anything my sister or I had ever done. My poor sister. I haven't heard her in days. She doesn't even plead for food anymore, and the door to the closet she's locked in barely even moves. I can't let what happened to her happen to me. Maybe my parents are right. Maybe I've been a bad influence on her. I'm going to leave this house until I can get rid of these thoughts, until I have the discipline I need to do what I know needs to be done. I packed a few things in a backpack and wrote my parents a letter. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm sorry. I know you think I'm a good boy, but I'm not. I wanted to be good, but I just can't help the things in my head. I don't want to read from your red book anymore. I don't want to see what happens to the baby lambs or eat that rotting communion. I think the enemy is doing something to my thoughts, Mom. Whenever you tell me to pray to our Father, I just keep thinking of that disgusting failure of a carpenter. I know it's wrong, and I deserve to be punished, but I can't take the punishments anymore, Mama. Please don't hate me. I'll come back when I can be the son you've always wanted. I've been on the streets for a few days now. I caught a glimpse of that little girl again, this time on a missing ad. I wonder if my parents miss me the way her parents miss her. I'm in a public library writing this story so that if anyone out there has had these same disturbing intrusive thoughts as me, these thoughts of hope and love and redemption, these thoughts that drove me from my family, that you can help me get rid of them. Every night, it's the same rhythmic tap. The taps come in threes, pausing momentarily between each tap. Then a minute goes by, and it repeats again. It started about 3 weeks ago. I was in bed after a long night's gaming session, ready to pass out after spending hours upon hours flaunting my skill. I'd already begun to feel dizzy as soon as I stepped out of my comfortable chair and decided then and there that I didn't need to brush or change. As soon as I was under the covers, however, I felt something. It's that feeling that you get that something isn't right, that something is watching you. I got that, except it was different. It was like something was all around me, yet not there at all. Kind of like being nervous in front of a camera. Like you can feel all the eyes behind some sort of lens of reality, watching you. I decided to just shrug it off as me being unnecessarily paranoid and closed my eyes, and that's when I heard it. It absolutely did not sound like the collision of tree branches on my excessively large bedroom windows. No. This was as if you were outside someone's apartment door and had knocked once and was getting impatient. There was a sureness about the taps, like it was deliberately trying to get my attention. It was incredibly unnerving, but I ignored it and went to bed anyway. I forgot about it the next day, and only realized when it happened the next night again. I cursed myself for forgetting, but I soon realized that it wasn't my fault for forgetting, because for the next couple of weeks, I would forget and relive the same events every night. Finally, I could bear it no longer. I wasn't able to get the proper rest I needed to stay in shape, and it was affecting my gaming and athletic performance. I was fed up with whatever was disturbing me, paranormal or not. I decided to investigate it as soon as I heard it the next night. It was like clockwork now. I knew exactly when to expect it, and this time I was not scared, paranoid, or disturbed. I was pissed. I threw my covers off the bed and turned to face the window. It was in the middle of tapping when it abruptly stopped. I glared at the window, peering through the gap between the curtains. And by God, I wish I had just ignored it. Instead of looking at the foliage of my homegrown mango tree, I stared into eyes. Red eyes. Unblinking, glowing red eyes. Eyes that were full of rage, anger, and malice. My body trembled. It was like looking into a pit of all your darkest nightmares. And I'm not talking about your common, uncommon fears like fear of spiders and such. I'm talking about witnessing every horrible possibility that you would dread to happen. I saw my parents' bodies, mangled in a car wreck, blood pouring out of their contorted and bloodied corpses like faucets. I saw my dog, who passed away a year ago, yelping relentlessly as fire engulfed her body, causing her flesh to blacken and peel off. Every inch of my heart broke, and for the first time, I felt truly helpless. I feared whatever was out there with every fiber of my being. My utmost desire was that it would stop this, to leave me alone. But as fate would have it, that's not how things work. I saw a smirk appear beneath the red eyes before they disappeared. I was relieved. My body was drained of any and all energy and I sank to the floor. I woke up 2 days later, surrounded by men in white coats. I had passed out, and everything in my body had stopped functioning. They had me declared dead, but my parents protested. Although they wept their hearts out for me, they remained adamant that I was alive. I heard all of it. It was like I was in my body, yet I wasn't. I felt them poke and prod me with all sorts of tools, but I was unable to move or react. I simply existed both in and out of my body. It was exhausting and I would have given up, let my spirit go. I would have died, had I not been suddenly jolted back into my body as soon as I began to lose my grip on reality. My parents were overjoyed. They thanked just about everything imaginable for bringing their beloved son back from wherever the hell he had just been. They sat with me as the doctors performed their tests, each of them scratching their heads as to how a corpse had miraculously reanimated itself. My parents didn't care. They were just happy to have me back. And I was overwhelmed with all the love and support I received from friends and family as I recovered. Finally, 2 weeks after the whole ordeal, I was released and allowed to return home. My parents surprised me with a welcome home party. I thanked them relentlessly, but they wouldn't have it. They said I deserved it. I hugged countless people, some of whom only met me when I was a child. After all the celebrations had ended, and it was just me and my parents left, I decided to head to bed. They made sure I was comfortable, bringing me water and all sorts of my favorite snacks, so I would not be hungry should I wake up at night. They said they're good nights, and I was left alone to my thoughts. I felt silly being treated like I was 10 years old, who had just been through something mildly traumatic, but I also felt loved. It was pure happiness that I felt, and that's what I thought to myself as I closed my eyes for the night, ready to step back into the world. Just as I began to doze off, I heard it, and this time, it was different.